Hey, Greg Montana here. Going to talk to you a little bit about being unstoppable because we've found that people all have beautiful visions that they very, very frequently accomplish and make it all the way toward them. Is there any force in nature more powerful than a 14-year-old that wants a bicycle? I mean, think about that. That's an unstoppable human being, right? They know exactly what they want, they've got a vision, and what they're really excited about is the experience. Like, I'm going to be able to and turn my few hundred yards of exploring into miles of exploring because I've got this new vehicle and I'm going to get to have an experience where freedom is experienced on all new levels. And so they're so clear about their experience and so dedicated to it that if they come up against an obstacle in the way of their vision, they find a way to go around it and over it and above it. And yet, when we're not that committed, when we kind of say, you know what, I kind of want this, but I'm not sure I really deserve it, or, I want this, but, I'm not sure it's going to be worth the effort. What we end up doing is we end up getting easily stopped by an obstacle. In fact, it's amazing to me that human beings, if we put an obstacle in their path and they're going toward their vision, and let's say it's just like a 14-year-old wants a bicycle, and then all of a sudden you put a wall and you say, no, you're not allowed to have a bicycle until you're 15. That what we often do is we'll attack the block of our obstacle. You this and you that. Or if, all of a sudden we hit a wall with, financial restrictions or something, we'll say, well, that's because my parents this and my parents that, or because the IRS this or the IRS, whatever it is. It's amazing how we will take our focus off our vision to focus on the obstacle and see, how we can best blame it to explain why we're such a victim of it. And yet, if you think about that 14-year-old, that unstoppable 14-year-old, what they're really doing is just staying focused on their vision. They're being relentless and beautifully focused on a vision and an experience that they're not going to settle to give up. And so we see this so frequently that there's a lot of different obstacles. A lot of them have to do with our past programming, but the number one obstacle, I think, is self-worth, that we don't feel that we're worthy of having that new bicycle, whether it's a nice car or a nice home or rental properties or passive income, whatever it happens to be. And, we work with people to remove those obstacles or leave the obstacle there and go get it. But what do you do when the obstacle's inside? Right? If the obstacle's outside and it's something that's just like, oh, you know what? It's just one of the parameters. I'm a 14-year-old. 14-year-olds don't have a whole lot of inside obstacles because they're just learning to stand for themselves and to get things for the first time for themselves. So they become that unstoppable, passionate, amazing hero that's going to get what they want. But what about when your obstacles are coming from the inside because someone treated you badly so you don't feel worthy? You don't feel like, oh, I deserve this. There's no question about that for a 14-year-old. They have so much desire for that bicycle, they're not even asking whether they deserve it. They want that experience, period. And yet as we grow up, we let the obstacles inside us tear down our vision before we even really get to speak it. Obstacles like, maybe you were beaten or abused or even raped. And if that's happened to you, it would destroy your self-esteem. Well, how does a person with very low self-esteem aspire to have a beautiful reward in life? And so often what we've got to do with people that are passionate about a vision, but they have some inner obstacle, is we've got to take them through a process of forgiveness, a process of letting go of the emotional barbed wire that they've got wrapped around their soul to protect it, or the self-guilt and shame that they feel because somebody did something to them and they took it personally, and now they're going to hold it against themselves for being, whether it's unworthy or ugly or overweight, or it doesn't make any difference what. You will be able to have your vision if you can simply remove the obstacle inside and then adopt the skills to just be unstoppable outside. But it makes no difference, if we teach somebody how to be unstoppable, but inside they're tearing down their desire with feelings of self-loathing, it'll go nowhere. So how do we release and let go and forgive? Well, I love this exercise where if I hold up a pen and I say, what is this pen worth? I'd get a bunch of different answers to that question. You might say 50 cents, you might say $1. And then I ask the question, well, does the value of the pen exist in the pen or does it exist in the person? Because one person said 50 cents, another person said $1, another person said a nickel. So where is the value of this pen? Is it actually in the object? Or is the value of the pen projected onto the pen? Because the human being that buys it or pays that dollar for it is going to get to have an experience of self-expression or an experience of being able to, put something in paper or draw a picture. So obviously the value is in the person being projected onto the object. If there was a car accident and there were 20 witnesses, how many stories would there be? There'd be 20 stories, right? Because each person has what they're committed to. And of course, you guys know I'm all about heart virtues and what is most meaningful to me that I'm projecting on everything in the world. And then making up stories about how I can't have this and projecting my story onto the car accidents. And so it's really an inside-out game, isn't it? It's an inside-out game for me to be able to get the goals that I want, to have the experiences I want in life. I've got to first get clear about, I'm worthy to have this. And here's the vision I want. And I want to be a major contributor in society. I want to experience myself being heroic and unstoppable. So that forgiveness is about taking that story that we projected on something, just like we project the value onto a pen. Something may have happened to you in life. Maybe, you looked a little funny or were a little overweight when you're growing up and people made fun of you. And you decided, you're ugly, and you're judging yourself and laying that label on yourself. Well, does somebody that you feel is ugly and loathsome, is that somebody that deserves rewards in life? So if we can just remove all those judgments, just remove all the projections on the world, the people around us, and even if we're just holding a grudge toward another person, a grudge where we say, he's an idiot and he's a jerk. Just carrying those thoughts, we're losing track of our vision. We're losing track of our goal in life, to have an extraordinary experience. So being distracted by these resentments, contempt, regret, and making them so real because we foster and feed them every day. I'm not going to be able to do this and I can't do that and my boss doesn't treat me this way. It's about having a different relationship with ourselves. I don't really have a relationship with other people before the relationship with myself. Before the relationship where I wake up in the morning and say, I love my life. And I'm going to choose my thoughts carefully. And I'm not going to let myself go down that path of just criticism and blame. Because I don't want to spend time with that person all day. I want to spend time with a person that encourages me, that sees my visions and my goals and knows that the experience I want to have is an experience of peace and joy and love. And so being clear about my vision and then taking all those projections, all those unforgiveness moments where I decided I'm not going to let this go because I have to protect myself, and reeling them back in and saying, people are being people. People are just being people all over the planet. They're stumbling and bumbling and sometimes they get greedy, and so have you and so have I. And so taking that and instead of holding it against somebody forever, you reel it back in and you say, I'm not going to do that today. And saying, I'm the one that's suffering with this. Unforgiveness, like they say, is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. Oprah talks about how one day, she saw a friend that she'd been holding a grudge against for years. And every time she'd think of him, she had these horrible thoughts and was like, and that poor person's life's going nowhere. And then one day she saw them standing on a street corner, laughing with somebody and having a great time as she drove by. And they didn't even know she was there. But she said, oh my God, they're not struggling or suffering. I'm the one that's struggling and suffering by thinking these thoughts about them. So if you're having those thoughts, whether it's self-loathing, whether it's thoughts about how you don't deserve or you feel guilty, there's a way to just let that go. To start looking at the person in the mirror and saying, I love you. I love that you have these aspirations. I love that you want a better life and that you suffer when life isn't going well. That's a reflection of how much beauty you want there to be in life. I love that you want to be a major contributor. And I, Big Greg, is committed to seeing you, Little Greg, living in this heart here, get to have that experience. And I'm going to take care of you. And I'm not going to let our past judgments and beliefs get in the way of the experience that we're committed to having together. And forgiving yourself, forgiving myself. I used to be really good at holding a grudge. And when I kind of looked at it and said, you know what, I'm suffering with these grudges for years. And the person that I would hold a grudge with, eventually, if it came around, they're like, I don't even know what I did. I just knew you wouldn't talk to me anymore. I'm like, wow, how stupid that I've been suffering and living for years with this. And so I went out and healed a whole bunch of relationships. And it's amazing how my sense of self-worth, of deserving, because of that forgiveness, because I'm not walking around in some grudge all day. Because if I believe that people treated me badly, and if I believe that I'm a victim, does a victim deserve to have wealth and riches because they're living life fully, making a huge contribution? I mean, do victims think that? I make a huge contribution and I'm such a victim. No, you got to pick one or the other. You're either somebody that is going to admit you care about people and you do beautiful things for them, because you do every day. You do little things for people every day. Or you're a victim. Take your choice. One is filled with all kinds of reasons and evidence, and therefore unforgiveness and grudges and contempt and just all kinds of blame. And the other is filled with appreciation and gratitude. Just appreciation and gratitude. And know that if somebody treated you wrong and you're holding a grudge against them, all you got to do is say, you know what? They did what they did. People are stupid. People do what they do. I've made mistakes. I'm going to reel in my judgments about it and let it just fall to the ground. It's kind of like when you watch a movie and at the end of the movie it says the end, the story's over, right? Then you get up and you go out of the room, out of the theater, and you you open a whole new door. So maybe it's time to end all those movies where you got an ongoing story of tragedy. And you just say to yourself, you know what? I got this thing going on, the end. The end, put the slide up, scroll the credits, and then say, all right, I'm done. And you get up and you walk out of that theater, and you walk out into a new life, and you say, now that I'm done with that, what do I really want? What experience would I have if I let go of all my grudges and was 100% forgiving? And having that vision. Tamra talks beautifully about how people sometimes come up against a wall and they try to be like a bulldozer and knock it down, or they try to, work it piece by piece, bit by bit, break it down. She says, I'm more like water. I just come up to an obstacle, I just flow around it and keep going in the direction I want to head. And it's a beautiful thing to leave you with. Imagine that vision that you have in life is something that you can just flow toward. And know that you deserve, if you let go of the contempts and the blames and the judgments, just reel them in, let them fall to the ground, and then start asking this refreshing new question. If I had no grudges, if I had no restrictions and no obstacles, what would I dare to dream? What would I really want for my life? I hope you've enjoyed considering that possibility, and I hope you take out a piece of paper right now and just write down the experience you really want to have. An experience of peace, of love. And then make some simple little, task list maybe, a little list of phone calls or meetings or documents that you could put together, call somebody up, courageous phone call, to have an experience of love or peace or joy. And then put an email together to have an experience of love or peace or joy. Let them know you've forgiven. And you're feeling open. Affirm that by sending a message, written message, phone call, meeting, document, to somebody else. It'll make all the difference. So I hope you are speaking your heart virtue and enjoying and loving, opening yourself, letting go of the baggage, and experiencing the true divinity that is aching for expression through you, making your huge contribution to humanity, and enjoying the rich rewards. Talk soon.